Hey guys, I got another 386 board for you today. This is the KMC A419 386 board. It's a 386 DX40. We've got 8 30-pin SIMs. And when I saw this one on eBay, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't sure if I would be able to fix it. The nature of the damage on this one, as you can see, it's really dramatic. We have some traces. Those are power rails that have lifted completely off the board. I'm going to start by getting some vinegar on here. We need to neutralize that battery electrolyte right away before it causes any further damage. And right away, we've got a very dramatic reaction between those two chemicals. I'm not sure if that was copper that was lifted off the board or if it was simply solder mask. It was pretty resilient. If it was just solder mask, I would expect it would break off right away. So it does appear those were actually traces that were lifted. Either way, I'm going to grab a toothbrush and we'll get those green crusties off the board. Those power rails really look rough. There's a little bit of copper left on the board, but I'm absolutely going to have to clean those and bodge over them. And while we're at it, I'll have to replace the socket for this keyboard controller chip. There's at least one pin has broken off. Well, that's okay. I wanted to check underneath the socket and make sure there's no further damage either way. Now the keyboard chip itself appears to be okay. And on the back, we've got some very minor trace damage. You can see a few of those look a little bit sketchy, but I ran a continuity check, and they all pass. After cleaning up the corrosion, you can see we've got a tiny little bit of copper left here. Believe it or not, those power rails still pass a continuity check. So I've added my postcard and a little bit of memory. We've got no activity on the postcard. Not a particularly good sign, but I'm not ready to give up yet. Now, I didn't realize at the time there were some factory preset jumpers on the board that had been changed. I went back and set those jumpers properly, so I have to wonder if this board may have actually posted properly before I did any repair work. So I've removed some components from the board, including the power connector, the keyboard connector, and that socket. Now, unfortunately, I did some minor damage to the board when I removed that socket. Nothing that can't be fixed, though. So I'm going to take a Dremel with a polishing tool to those traces. And then we can tin them and install a bodge wire. And here we are. I've turned off the camera flash so you can see the traces a little bit better. Not surprisingly, when I took the Dremel to those traces, it actually removed all the remaining copper. So I absolutely have to install bodge wires over those damaged traces. And here we are with the bodge wires in place. Now I'm probably going to revisit that. These will work, but I think I can do a better job. So we'll come back to that toward the end of the video. But for now, let's reinstall those components, add a video card, and power up. Okay, good. So now it does post. Now let's go into BIOS. Now I'm not going to change anything in BIOS for the moment. I found something interesting that I want to show you. I have a Gotek floppy emulator connected to the system. I'm just going to back out of BIOS setup and see if it'll boot from that Gotek. And yes, indeed, it is booting from the Windows 98 startup disk. Yeah, don't worry, I'm not going to try and install Windows 98 on this poor little 386. That's just as a test. Now, I'm going to reboot. We'll go back into BIOS setup. Only this time, I'm going to change a couple of settings. Nothing dramatic. I just want to tell the system it has a 3.5 floppy drive and actually tell it to boot from that drive. So really the very same thing that we just did. Only difference is, this time I'm explicitly saving the info in the BIOS setup. And let's see what happens. So saving that information and rebooting. We get a beep code on boot, the incorrect amount of memory. And if I press F1 to resume the boot, we get a parity error. So let's try and reboot again just in case. Now remember, the only thing I changed was a couple of settings in BIOS. And we're still getting a parity error. Now, at this point, I have to confess, I went down a bit of a wrong road. That issue only cropped up when I started saving information in the BIOS setup. Those BIOS settings are stored in the NVRAM chip, so I assumed it was an issue with the NVRAM chip. Well, long story short, I was wrong. The system was telling me it was a parity error. Every now and again, I would get this 0D code from my postcard. 0D, if I'm not mistaken, with this BIOS indicates a memory refresh issue. So it came back to a couple of bad memory sticks in the system. So I've removed those 2 bad RAM sticks, marked them as bad. I'll do some further testing on those with another system later on. But for now, we got some good memory in there. Let's boot up. Okay, so once again, I've got my video card, multi-IO card, and a sound card in there. For a hard drive, I have the 512 meg disk-on module, and I'm going to leave my Gotek floppy emulator on there for the moment as well. We may need that. Okay, so far so good. We've got the proper amount of memory. Now I'm just going to go into BIOS, add a couple of settings, configure the hard drive and the floppy drive, and we'll save that information. Now, booting back up, this is where I would normally get that parity error. But nope, this time we're booting into DOS. So I'm just going to install the driver for that sound card. Oh, you may see an error message pop by here. There's a game port on the multi-IO card and a game port on the sound card, so that probably caused a resource conflict. But we're booted back up. Let's pop into Doom and make sure we have sound. Yep, sound appears to work okay. I'm just going to mute that for the moment, and we'll speed through this gameplay. Now, I'm going to be honest, when I saw this board, I really didn't expect I'd be able to get this one up and running. The damage was really dramatic, but that was part of the reason I absolutely had to buy this board. It was like watching one of those really sad SPCA commercials, where you've got the dog sitting out in the rain, shivering in the cold, and you think to yourself, man, I really have to do something. Before I go, I wanted to revisit the issue with those damaged power rails. Yeah, I went back and I redid those traces. Well, it looks a little bit better now. And I've covered all that damage with clear nail polish, just to protect it a little bit. So, if you enjoyed this one, please feel free to like and subscribe. And beyond that, hey, thanks for watching.